gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, the dynamic duo of the hoop world. Pete, welcome back. We got a beautiful, beautiful Indian summer day today. This is what people in Massachusetts live for. The leaves are starting to change. It's probably going to hit 75 today. It's a
80.
Beautiful, sunny, 80 maybe. And
80.
we had rain last night, so there's some different beautiful smells in the air. Just a great, great time to be in Western Mass for sure. Pete, we're off into Pete's Corner right away. Lot to cover today, lot going on in the world, and we're going to jump off after Pete's Corner into the Bruce Pearl saga. Okay, Pete, hit me.
All right, question number one. Do you think Stephen A. Smith is going to run for office in 2026 or 2028?
It sure sounds that way.
Yeah.
It sure sounds that way. He seems to be opining on a lot of political stuff these days, entering into the fray. Honestly, I'm having a little, I'm an independent myself, so at times people might have a little bit of a hard time grasping me politically, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time grasping him as far as what he stands for.
Right.
I think he's been pretty obvious some of the things he doesn't stand for. And that's good, but I'd like to hear some more from him. I think he's, kind of a personality, and isn't that what's kind of, you can blame it on whoever you want, but isn't that kind of taking over politics right now?
Yep.
It's a cult of personality.
Yep.
So, yes, I do think that's in the offing. And when we talk about Bruce Pearl in the next few minutes after Pete's Corner, that might also be part of that formula as well. There's rumor that in Alabama they only want former coaches to run for Senate. So they have Tommy Tuberville out there and now possibly Bruce Pearl. We'll talk about that in depth later, though. But, Pete, that's a good question because he definitely, to me, is using his forum, definitely using his front to talk about things that aren't sports related, to talk about things that aren't LeBron James and him having a fight. It isn't about, the women's league, the WNBA, and his support or lack of support for that. He's been full-blown, and I guess he maybe has a different podcast.
He spun off a podcast just for that stuff.
That's off of ESPN.
Yep.
Because I'm not sure 100% how he's getting away with it, but I don't think ESPN is going to let you come on and do that, on a daily basis. So
Not
I think
on their platform, no.
Yeah, I think he's kind of threading the needle there. But I think if you're asking me why thread that needle when you've got it almost made, you're a made man at ESPN in the basketball world. You're one of the voices that everybody listens to. Why do all of what you're doing right now if you're not planning on jumping into the political arena? Can he get money together? Sure. Does he already have a wide swath of support? Sure. You got to tell me what he's running for, and then I would have more of an astute observation on whether he can win. If you're telling me he's running for president, he has zero chance to win for president. If you're telling me he wants to get into Congress, into a Senate, a state Senate, or run somewhere locally, I think he'd have a great chance.
Yep. All right, so state of the college game. Are we in training camp yet for college? Is this where practices kind of start?
Okay. I was at UMASS's practice yesterday.
Okay.
So the answer to that is an affirmative. They have started Division I and Division II. Division III is October 15th still, but the NCAA, because of what was going on at the upper levels, granted Division III 8 practices to use at their discretion prior to October 15th.
Oh, okay.
So we'll all be going very, very soon. Yeah, October 1st will be our first kickoff date, but the Division I schools have already been in full-blown practices, going up and down, competing, and we'll talk about a little bit. We're going to go into a UMass basketball in a microcosm a little bit later as they join the MAC, and I wanted to do a little bit of analysis on that league and where I think UMass will fire into that league and have some success. So, yeah, I think that, your first two questions are spot on. Absolutely.
All right, let's switch over to the NBA. Is this the perfect time to execute trades or to get your game plan ready for the season, or both?
Well, the trading piece is a little bit difficult because the trading piece, they have deadlines in the NBA about when and you can and can't. But if you're looking at the season and you're looking to firm up your roster, and let's say you're the Bucks, and you have Dame Lillard, who's been out with an Achilles. Let's say you're the Celtics and Jason Tatum is going to be out for a significant amount of time. I think that's when you might want to look to whatever possibilities there are. Now, there's a myriad of possibilities open to this. Where could you draw the players from? From Europe,
Free agency?
from free agency, from a lot of different places. But really what you would be doing is you're looking at, in the largesse of that pool, you'd be looking at a group of players who didn't make the NBA to begin with. You know, so if you're looking for real help, Jason Tatum, real help, it's not going to be available right now. And given the fact that the Celtics have pretty much hollowed out their roster at the moment, I don't know what they would have to trade right now if they were looking to make that big move. You know, who would they put on the block right now that wouldn't cripple them moving into the year?
All right, so here's a quick follow-up. Could players that took their name out of the NBA draft now decide they don't want to stay with their NIL deal, they don't like it, whatever, and now become a free agent and come onto an NBA team that way?
Probably not. That process is still where they have to declare in or out. They give them a time frame from which to declare in or out. Now, your question brings up another point in another context: is will that last forever?
Well,
will somebody will sue them?
If you don't like your
goes away.
If you don't like your NIL deal, right? You said, okay, I'm out of the draft. You don't like your NIL deal. You could you walk away at this point and declare yourself as a free agent and say, anybody want me? Like a really good player. Anybody want me?
I don't know enough about that to answer in the affirmative or the negative, but I don't know what would stop it. And I can tell you right now, there's the way things are rolling right now. Every door has been kicked open. Every block and parry the NCAA has made in order to try and keep this and ameliorate some of the drastic change that's gone on, they've been unsuccessful. And so is somebody going to knock down the wall of eligibility? I want to stay forever. This is my job now. Or are you going to get to a point, this is what I said to somebody else, are you going to get to a point where, this is what I made a comment the other day, somebody challenged me on it, but I'll go back to it, all right? Are you now in a position where we're going to take all of this off the campus?
Oh, okay.
Take all of it off of the academic campus. You're no longer the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. You're the Fort Bend Friars. Okay?
Then they'd be the G League, though.
And then find out, without having that draw to the alumni who have their hearts in this and who have always rooted for their school, without having that, how successful would they be? Point two, you could clean out Notre Dame's entire roster today. Fill it tomorrow with another 125 players. That stadium will not have an empty seat. The bookstore will still do $2 million, and they will still be the number one television entity in all of college football. Why? Because of their alumni, because it's Notre Dame, because of the tie-in. And so what I think you're getting precipitously close to is people are going to throw up their hands and say, you know what? Take it somewhere else. You know why, Pete? Let me tell you why also. Okay. This is the part you're really going to love. The colleges used to feed off that money.
Right.
Now they have to give it away.
Yeah.
Why keep them?
Yeah.
Is your percentage large enough with these great deals? Possibly it is, that you would stay in? Or have they now taken up $20 million of your revenue and say, now disperse it to your athletes? So the only reason they were in this to begin with in the first place, the only reason all those people turned their eyes to all of the malfeasance was because of the money. Now the money is either drying up or going away, and now you need to, we're going to talk about it later in the show, I say that a lot, but Virginia Tech is asking Pete for an extra $200 million to be pumped into their athletics program over a 4-year period, only to close the gap, which what we talked about before is that interconference disadvantage. Clemson spends $67 million on football. Virginia Tech is at $41 million. Now it's open for everybody to see. It's really, and so some of these schools are going to have to step up or they're going to have to step out. And that's what's really, really going on. This is a muscle game that you're playing right here. Yeah. The bigs are eating the little. And everybody else that's on the lower level is getting muscled. Absolutely muscled. I don't know where it turns around, Pete, but I can tell you it's the last 10 days in the landscape, the last 14 days in the landscape, and I'm going to talk about that right now, this is what's gone down. All right, we start off with Bruce Pearl, all right, the Auburn coach. Controversial statements he made. Some people wouldn't consider them controversial. Other people would consider them controversial, depending upon which side of the argument you're standing on. But for a college basketball coach to come into that forum, again, like Stephen A., stepping out of his normal basketball forum, hey, we rebounded better than they did. We scored more points better than they did. Our defense was really good tonight. Instead, it was political. Instead, it was outside the frame of what he would normally do. And so we're saying, is he setting up for a political run? Now, we talked about Bill Lang and the timing of that in order to get the position handed over to one of the coaches that he was hoping to have it handed over to. Now we have nepotism come right in here, where Auburn is handing the job over from Bruce Pearl to Stephen Pearl, his son. The timing of this could not have been worse. And I'm going to take Mr. Pearl to task for this, because what happens now with the NIL having kicked the door open to this is each player, once a coach leaves, now has 30-day portal free entry to see where they can wind up because their coach has left. One of the arguments in the old days before all this money hit the floor, before all this money hit the dance floor, one of the arguments in the old days was, well, the coaches can leave anytime they want without any ramifications, but the players cannot. Good point. It led to a lot of what we're talking about here. Yeah. But now Mr. Pearl leaving when he did doesn't afford those players the 30 days that they're supposed to have in the portal, because you can't transfer to another school and play right now, to my knowledge. If you're on a trimester, possible, but anybody in a semester format, again, take it off the college campus then, because then Tahad Pettiford can go anywhere he wants. Then all of the Auburn players can go anywhere they want. But right now, they kind of put a Malachi crunch on these kids, and they're making them stay to play for Stephen Pearl and going, well, they like Stephen. Stephen recruited them. They really want Stephen. When, to be honest, there are at least 250 resumes in the country better than Mr. Stephen Pearl's for this job. At least 200 resumes better than his. Now, you go to the whole piece of Bruce Pearl's career, all right? And I kind of like Bruce Pearl because he was outspoken, but there are some parts of it that, if you go back historically, that we've got to look at, okay? Bruce Pearl, initially known in our business, really, really bad thing, as a snitch, okay? Really? He was an assistant at Iowa. He was recruiting a player, Deion Thomas, who wound up becoming one of the best players in Illinois history. I believe that he is the leading scorer in Illinois history to this day. Okay? So it's Iowa and Illinois for Deion Thomas. Now, I can't tell you what type of things were going on in that orbit, but when Deion Thomas decided to go to Illinois, Bruce Pearl called him up on the phone and tried to tape the conversation and tried to bring Mr. Deion Thomas to the allegation that he had been paid by Illinois to attend there, that he had been induced by Illinois to attend there. Initially, something in the transcript. First off, you have, okay, in Illinois, you have to have two-party consent in order to tape somebody. In Iowa, you only needed one-party consent. But I'm assuming Mr. Thomas was in Illinois at the time. Mr. Pearl was in Iowa. I don't know how that fits into state rules about whether this young man had his consent to be taped. And then when they taped him, they turned it into the NCAA. Okay, it got basically Bruce Pearl blacklisted the business for a really, really long time. Now, he's a 1982 graduate of BC. He's a Boston native, went to Sharon High School, and I didn't know that about him before I looked into it. But the hypocrisy piece of it comes when, and this is going to, NCAA is going to take a hit on this one as well, all right? Because the hypocrisy piece comes when a recruit, Aaron Kraft, was taken to Bruce Pearl's house on an unofficial visit at a picnic, which apparently, I didn't know this either till I just heard it, you're not allowed to take a recruit on an unofficial visit off campus to entertainment. The entertainment has to be done on campus. Another NCAA rule, you shake your head and go, why do you have that?
They probably used to take them to the club.
You might have had some of that. They might have taken them all over the place, and that's also now a mile limit about how far they can take them. All right, there's a mile limit as far as 30 miles on their official visit outside of that. So anyway, Aaron Kraft attends the picnic at Pearl's house. They get jammed up for it. The NCAA comes in. Pearl lies to the NCAA. He induces Mr. Aaron Kraft's dad to lie to the NCAA. They get jammed up, and for a long time, there was basically the NCAA comes in and gives you a show cause penalty. And the show cause says you need to show us the cause, which says you need to hire this person. And basically the NCAA for a long time, playing heavy, we give you a show cause. If you hire this guy, we're coming in after your program. We're going to investigate your program. We're going to look into what you're doing as well. So a lot of coaches, once you get a show cause, that's a good bit of time. Auburn hires Pearl with 5 months left on his show cause. Hadn't been coaching, hadn't been doing anything in the business. All of a sudden, back to Auburn. It just shows you what the business is all about at that root level before the NIL came into this. It just shows you what the business was all about. The NCAA, now, Dan Dakich comes out and says, I was an assistant coach for Bobby Knight, and we did the exact same thing. We took some recruits who were on unofficial visit over to Bobby Knight's house for a picnic. We didn't know it. We didn't turn ourselves in. We didn't get caught. But even the great Bobby Knight fell prone to some of the stuff that the NCAA lays out there. That's just the only time you find out you violated it is after you violated it. And so they've had a lot of problems with that too. And so I do, but Pearl, jamming up his players like that where they don't get their 30-day portal shot, a myriad of different places that he have left on probation or gotten jammed up. It makes me wonder why these schools sometimes don't feel like they can look to somebody else to coach that team. Maybe somebody that hasn't been, jammed up, as many times as some of these coaches have been, but then they get opportunity and opportunity and opportunity. It's just like the high school kids trying to come up in an NIL deal now. How are these coaches, these young coaches, supposed to climb the ladder when you keep getting second and third and fourth chances for complete malfeasance within the business? Things that would have been a lifetime ban in other places. They don't have it anymore. And they're looking at these coaches as part of the entity. And so they have to protect them as well. I can tell you there's a bunch of big-name coaches that didn't get rolled over by the NCAA when the NCAA could have rolled over. They came in and said, well, we'll take a good look, and we'll come up with something. Believe me, they go after who they wanted to go after, and that's part of the problem that they've had. All right, let's go back to what I said is Bruce Pearl is the culmination of this last number of days in college basketball. It starts with Bill Lang leaving St. Joe's to join the Knicks. And I said before, I have a really, really hard time trying to believe that this just happened, that Mike Brown was hired months ago, and him and Bill Lang haven't had any conversations about this. And we're just going to wait up until school starts, right up until the last day possible when the team who's getting left could not possibly find another coach in that time frame. They go and they hand it to the assistant coach.
Initially, you thought he was trying to jam up the university, but now you think he's trying to jam up the players?
I think with Pearl, it may not have been his intent, but that's what occurred.
Okay.
Because by doing it as late as he did, if he knew this in August, Tahad Pettiford gets his 30 days to go explore. Tahad Pettiford's from Jersey City. Danny Hurley's from Jersey City. Maybe there would have been some conversations about joining UConn. Maybe there would have been some situations of my coach is leaving. I want to find a new place, which is what the intent of the rule was for, to give them that 30 days. And now, basically, you took that 30 from them. And so I don't know if it was intentional, but it happened. And whether it was intentional or not, it's still a knock on him for doing that to his players when you could have done this. Now, Here's maybe what he was up against. If he goes earlier and earlier and earlier, do they hire Stephen Pearl? If he comes out in June and says, I'm out, they get a new coach. They get a guy of the 200 resumes that I talked about, much, much better resume than Stephen Pearl. A much better proven coach than Stephen Pearl. So that's what Bruce Pearl was up against. If I wait and I wait and I wait, just like Billy Lang waited, they're going to have to give it to my son. It'll guarantee him at least a year to have the team under his belt. Now, if I'm Auburn and I'm St. Joe's, I'm hanging the interim tag on both of those coaches, and I'm going to wait to see how well it goes down before I say we're going long-term with either one of those coaches, because basically you had a gun put to your head. Basically, you had a knife put to your throat in order to make that hire happen, okay? By the timing of it. That's what the coaches did. By the timing of it, they left the school no choice, basically. There's always a choice, but let's just go through some of the other ones. Coaches fired for violations that came in around $100. You know, they were in the range of like $100 violations, where you have now people getting millions and millions of dollars. I don't know how the NCAA comes in and says that was inappropriate when you're able, you know, I guess the coaches aren't allowed to give the money, and that might have been one of the things. But again, we had another coach fired because his assistant coach was, Pete, hold on to your hat, was arrested on charges of pimping and trafficking. He's pleaded innocent, not guilty to all of those charges, but it wound up getting him fired and his head coach fired as well. This has all taken place in the last 14 days.
How does it,
coach,
how does it the head coach get fired? If maybe he didn't know. Like he must have been involved. If he got canned.
There has to be some linkage. There has to be some involvement, or they just said, man, you got to have better control over your staff. You know, you hired these guys. You brought this guy here. You know, they do operate like the mafia sometimes, Pete. You know, who brought him in? Who brought this guy here? He just embarrassed the school. He just embarrassed the university. We're going to have to take you out, too, because you brought him in. So you also had a coach suspended amid abuse allegations. I'm not going to use any names, and I don't want to hit the schools here because they're getting ready to play. I don't want to hit these kids any more than they've been hit already. But a coach let go because of abuse allegations, and again, we went with the trafficking charge. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. A really, really tumultuous 2 weeks in a time when you think this is, all right, we're ready to lock down and go into the season. We're ready to have our season. We're ready to launch. And again, you can take this for what it's worth, but this detracts from the kickoff of the season. This takes off from it takes the spotlight off where the spotlight should be. The players, the programs, the coaches, the assistant coaches. That's where the spotlight should remain. This takes it way, way off of this. They haven't talked about Auburn basketball in days. All they're talking about is Bruce Pearl, Stephen Pearl, and the Auburn handoff, the Warhawk handoff. All right, so you got a bunch of other stuff going on here, but we're gonna keep rolling here, Pete, because you're just gonna shake your head on this one. All right? Santa Clara has now signed a player, and this is alluding to something that you were talking about. I didn't want to spill the whole beans on this.
That's fine.
Because there's an old Springsteen song called Sherry Darlin'. Okay?
Okay.
Santa Clara just brought in Thierry Darlin'. And Thierry Darlin' was in the G League for 2 years, playing in the G League, but never entered his name into the NBA draft. He's playing in the G League for 2 years. He has just been signed by the Santa Clara Broncos. I wanted you to hear Rick Pitino's quote on this, which I find, well, there's a couple of edges to this.
We need a sound effect.
Come on, man.
This is, I mean, so Pitino says, so now we're able to recruit the G League and other places. He goes, I have first dibs on Giannis. But what they did was, and I thought it was a valid point, because once you kick the door open, the door's open. You can't say it's only open over here. There's a lot of players in the NCAA right now that had European professional contracts. And they're signing professional contracts over here on NIL deals. But they've had those contracts all along, and the NCAA has allowed them to come in. So Amateurism, as Pete, you said, it's dead. They killed it. And the money ball rolled right over the top of it. They're giving him, this is the thing that's kind of intriguing to me.
Good Lord.
Mr. Darlin only gets 2 years of eligibility because he used 2 years in the G League. The NCAA came in and made him a junior.
So he's never
been in college before.
Oh, my
But
God.
now he's a junior. It's unbelievable. But Santa Clara, this is the
So
piece
wait a
of
minute.
it.
So they just de facto made college the G League. They have made college the G League by doing that eligibility rule. They don't even know what they just did.
They have kicked every single door down.
So the
and
G League is completely useless now.
the G League will now get pilfered.
Well, no, it is. But not only that, but it's the same as going to college. What's the difference? There is none.
No, and so now that you can make that option, you'll go there. Just like now
So the
you
high
have,
schoolers that don't get recruited are going to go to the G League.
and so now you're going to have the G League serve as a minor league to the NCAA, right?
Yeah,
you're going to
this is
have
insane.
you can. Where is the higher level of money? The guys in the G League aren't making the same as the 7 million supposedly Boogie Flan got to go to Florida. They're not getting the same Cooper Flag package.
But this is insane.
It's but
On the face.
But on the face of it, Pete, you said it. Once you kick this door open, how do you then say no to just about anything?
Yeah.
You're stuck in this place now, really, really hard rock in a place, and man,
We've gone to the phantom zone.
we really have entered it very, very quickly, too. We've hyperspaced into the phantom zone. It's unbelievable. But, again, they gave him 2 years of eligibility. Patino wants dibs. But here's the piece of it that I want to include for Coach Patino and all of the others who are having a tough time with this. Santa Clara's head coach, his name is Herb Sendek. One of the funniest things that I heard in response to all of this on social media was, Herb Sendek still coaching? So, but Herb Sendek's not as old as some of these other guys that are coaching. And one of the things that I thought really prescient about Patino's comment was, guess who Herb Sendek worked for?
Who?
Rick Pitino. He worked for Rick Pitino.
What?
You can't make this stuff up, Pete. You can't make it up. It's
my.
unbelievable. But you know what it does? It provides tremendous amount of fun for us. Because I don't know if I've laughed this hard in a while. It's been pretty good. All right.
How does the NCAA contort itself into that big of a pretzel?
First off, the NCAA, what do you think their legal bills are right now?
Oh, they probably have every major Wall Street or every major legal firm on retainer.
Exactly. And so eventually you're going to dry up the NCAA in legal costs. They have to go to court every single time to defend against Bannon for 7 years. With O'Bannon for 7 years, 8 years they were in court. I can tell you that the NCAA went to court with one of the guys that I worked with, former coaches that I worked with, for upwards of 10 years. That case was in court. So they're right now probably bleeding out on attorney's fees. The lawyers are loving this stuff. But right now, the NCAA, now they have to be selective, right, Pete? When you've gotten an arm chopped off and gotten a leg chopped off, you now got to worry about your other arm and your other leg. And so are you now going to be out there looking to get those chopped off, or are you going to try and play it close to the vest and not get involved in anything right now that's going to put you in a bad spot? Because public relations-wise, they're done. Public legitimacy-wise, they're done. I don't even know what they're still doing in existence.
The conferences run the show. They don't run the show anymore.
Television's running the show now. Television's been running Notre Dame football for years.
But they're running the television's running the show through the conferences, not through the NCAA.
100%. That's how football got at the NCAA. Basically, big-time football kicked the NCAA out years ago without saying we kicked the NCAA out years ago. They started operating on their own, started doing their own entity, and had basically the NCAA was reduced to being a punitive entity to basically just come in and penalize people when they had the time to go investigate and actually find it. Because once an investigation starts, Okay, they opened up an investigation into Todd Golden, who wound up winning the national championship in the beginning of the year for harassment, a number of other things. These schools bring in their attorneys. These schools bring in their big-time attorneys in order to knock that back. And so the NCAA comes in. If you don't have the same kind of firepower in your legal arsenal, you're just getting killed time and time again, to the point now where I think they want to stay out of it. I think they want to just say, every time we keep going in here, we're losing a limb. And they want to stay out of it as much as they can. Right now, they are totally on their heels. They're backpedaling the entire way. And it's sad, but it was coming for a long time. It's been coming for a long time. All right, UMass. I want to do a quick little capsule on their basketball program right now, where they're going, where they're heading, and just talk about their move to the MAC conference right now and what that means. All right, so in the MAC conference, it's the Mid-American Conference. It's basically, it's Ohio, it's Michigan, and Illinois-based conference. UMass will have, this is something I think that I would discuss with people. I think this creates in it, because a lot of people are talking about this in the negative. Here's a couple of positives for you. Number one, UMass is going to be the only team in that league east of the Mason-Dixon line. Okay, they're going to have all of that recruiting territory where students are trying to stay home. They're going to have that really carved out. Now, all of those other schools are competing for the same pool of players in that Midwest region. A lot of players out there. There's a ton of talent out there. But UMass has kind of set themselves off from when they were in the Atlantic 10. You were recruiting against all of those schools.
Yeah,
all of those similar schools.
Yep.
Now I think this is an advantage for them. Second advantage I think that they have going into this league is they have a powerhouse head coach. Frank Martin has been at South Carolina, been in the SEC. He has a high level of acumen, a high level of coaching ability, and I think that's going to fare well. In this league, though, you do have some really tough coaches, head coaches to go up against. But I think that UMass, the fact that they have Frank Martin is really going to portend well for them, because he's seasoned and there's not much you're going to throw at him in a game. Because what I talk about with a lot of people is, in this whole thing, one of the things that's going to be difficult for UMass is to accumulate the experiential knowledge that everybody in a league accumulates. You play against each other. You accumulate film, data, numbers, all of this stuff that goes into your approach to how you're going to play them. The new piece for the UMass coaching staff is to come in and have to assimilate to a new league and then get all of that experiential knowledge that they need. The good thing for them is you're not going to throw much at Frank Martin that he hasn't seen before. You're not going to be able to throw much at him in-game that he can't make an in-game adjustment to. But let's talk about the league a little bit, because last year, Akron, very strong team. John Groce, former Ohio State assistant, tremendous head coach, done very well. 28-7 they were last year, 17-1 in the league. They're tough. They're returning a lot. They're a very solid program. Miami of Ohio, 25-9. 14-4 in the league, another really good team. That's going to be tough to climb because you're just coming into the league. And when you're just coming into a league, they're going to have established teams that have been there a long time and are very good. Kent State, last year I watched them. Coach Rob Senderoff is a terrific young coach, bandied about for the Fordham job a little bit last year. Great coach, but also took it into the NIT, went up to St. Bonaventure, my alma mater, which is a very difficult place to play. The Riley Center is usually lit and very difficult to play in. And Kent State went in there and really did a good job against the Bonnies, handled them. 24-12, they're 11-7 in the league. Senderoff can coach. Toledo, 18-15, 10-8. And then you go to the Ohio Bobcats. This is where I see UMass being able to carve in here a little bit. I think this is where they're going to be able to finish in the league. They finished last year with a pretty good run in the A-10. They were 7-11. But I think this is how they're going to fit in here. Now, the second flip coin of the experiential knowledge piece is none of the teams in this league have the experiential knowledge against UMass as well. Yep. So that will take time for them to accumulate. But UMass has to go up against the other 12 teams in the league. All right, let's keep rolling here. Western Michigan, 12-20, 9-9. I see UMass as a level being able, because they have a beautiful home court arena at UMass. They've got a beautiful, beautiful practice facility. I would imagine their facilities are as good as anybody's in this league for basketball. So you got Eastern Michigan, Bowling Green, Ball State. You know, UMass is gonna be able to deal with those teams and going to be able to handle them. Then you go in and say Central Michigan, Buffalo, Northern Illinois. I think they'll be okay there. So a lot of people have a lot of trepidation about what's new. And when change comes, a lot of people react in negative fashion to change. But I'm not sure what great philosopher said it, but change, the only thing about the world that's constant is change. It's going to change. You better be ready for it.
And the basketball program didn't have a lot of choice in this. This decision was made on the football side of the house, and everybody else had to come along with them. So by hiring a great coach, they put themselves in a good spot.
Agreed, 100%. They have to do something with football. They have to.
Oh, yeah, they had to.
They have to. And I think this is a good answer. I think Ryan Bamford made the right decision given all of the factors that were on the plate for him.
Yeah.
And so it was a tough decision, not an easy one. A charter member of the Atlantic 10 in basketball, so it was an emotional thing as well. But I really, in the long end of it, I think it's probably going to work out pretty good. All right, we got NIL, the division within the division. We promised you this. This is something that was a little startling to even me. All right, now this is football. All right, so we're a basketball show, but in order to illuminate, in order to give you some of the real hard data, we had to take it in through football because they're the ones with all the money. Okay, Virginia Tech, as we alluded to previously, has asked for $229 million in additional funds to be pumped into athletics. That's over a 4-year period. That's over $50 million a year. All right?
Are they looking for all new facilities or something?
No. They're going to upgrade their facilities for sure, but a lot of this stuff is going to be pumped into everything else that you have to have now. Practice facilities, weight facilities, and I'm assuming NIL.
Good Lord.
So this is what we're going to allude to in the ACC. Now, Virginia Tech's football for years, many years, had a coach, Frank Beamer, great coach, really solid coach. He held that program together, really solid program. But he's now since retired. They've moved through, gotten some different coaches. But then once the money came into it, the disparities were just too big to overcome. Regardless if you had, the best coach in the country coaching the team, the disparities just became unbelievable. So the current budget for Virginia Tech ranks 14th in the ACC.
Wow.
That's at $122 million currently. They want to go to $229 million over the top, but they want to eventually get their budget up to be, by adding this 229, they want to be in the $220 million range every single year. Now, the piece that comes to my mind is, okay, so you're going to add the 229 in, right? And you're going to break it up over 4 years. 60 million here, 60 million there, 60 million there, 60 million there. Now you're caught up. Where does the money come from to stay caught up? Because right now you're asking for 229 additional dollars to the ones you don't have.
Isn't Virginia Tech a state school?
I'm not sure, but if they are, then that's a real question, right? How are you going to make that up in year 5, 6, 7, and 8? Because right now it sounds like a good plan, but how does it sustain itself? How does it keep it rolling? And that's a piece of it that I really don't know. But the increases have to come by 29-30. All right, Clemson has $67.8 million right now. Football. Florida, $61.1 million. North Carolina, $48, and Virginia Tech, lowly peasants that they are down there at the $41 million mark. Unbelievable. But that's just to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of an inclination about what number of the dollars being thrown around out there and why are there such great disparities within the league. If everybody in the league gets a share of the money, television comes in. They don't give Clemson more money than Virginia Tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they split the money evenly amongst all the conference members. And so I don't understand, where all this disparity comes from. If you all got the same amount of money, where's Clemson getting that extra $26 million from? That's interesting.
By the way, Virginia Tech is a state school.
Virginia Tech is a state school. Wow.
So guess who pays that bill?
Yep. You and me.
Taxpayers of Virginia.
And you and me. It's going to extrapolate out, too, because they'll get federal dollars in there as well. Jason Tatum. Pete, give you a little NBA stuff here. We're going to slide over a little bit. Jason Tatum has not ruled out a midseason return. We talked about this earlier. I'm going to give it to our fans straight up. Are they in playoff contention at the moment he becomes healthy? And if they are in playoff contention or within reach of playoff contention, Mr. Tatum will suit up. If you get to the point where all of these changes, Porzingis goes, Holiday goes, Tatum gets hurt, and you have all of these changes, and they look at it and they go, at the time when Mr. Tatum gets cleared by doctors, gets cleared by their training staff, and they say, okay, he's cleared. What's the record? If the record is 15-30, he's not suiting up. You won't see him. There'll be no reason for him to be seen other than if he wanted to accumulate more points, rebounds, assists for his own personal, gain. But right now, in order of helping the team, if I'm the coach and the general manager, if I'm Brad Stevens, and I look at our team and I say, we got a shot, we're there, suit Tatum up. Then I look at our team and I say, man, we're not going to make the playoffs this year. The cake's already baked. I say sit him out, let him rest, and let him really rehab, get stronger, and come back the next year. And also, hopefully, in that offseason, while he's out, you might be able to make some personnel changes, which are able to bring that team back up to the championship level that they have been without spending the dollars in the frivolous kind of way that they spent them the last time. That would be my guess. You're looking at right now, and I'm going to give you one more, Tyler Herro from the Miami Heat, out with a foot injury. That's going to slow the Heat down incrementally because he's one of their best shooters, one of their best players, and he was on fire last year for a good part of the year. He's going to miss the start of the season due to a foot injury. All right, this was something I found interesting. Fantasy basketball, just like fantasy football, man, did it take over and really become an industry. I remember being in somebody's living room back in the day when I was a young kid drafting my fantasy football team, which somehow always wound up in last place. I'm not sure how that happened, but I was excellent at being really bad. But you go through it, and what you do, though, is you have a group of guys, just a group of friends of yours sitting around. There's 10 of you, and everybody drafts, And so you'll either have a bunch of guys going around the room going, wow, that's a good pick. Oh, I wish he was around when I picked. Or people will hysterically laugh in your face because they can't believe that you picked that person at that time. All right? But usually when you have a fantasy draft and there's 10 guys that are all pretty accomplished players, all right, this is how they drafted. And so this is kind of telling. Because if you line up your MVP votes this way, these are who they think are the most valuable players to play on their team. But unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. All right, so you have their number one pick overall. I'm going to roll through this because I thought it was kind of cool. All right, you have their number one pick overall is Joker, Nikola Jokic. No surprise. Number 2, SGA. You can flip them. Maybe your team, sure. Maybe you want to have something else on your team. They're both statistical freaks. They're going to show up in categories all over the place. They're going to help you win fantasy games. That's because fantasy isn't necessarily about having the best players on your team. For example, Shaquille O'Neal was a terrible fantasy basketball player because he would destroy your free throw percentage.
Free throw rate.
He would destroy it. And so you have to kind of look at this and go, so it's not always perfect fantasy, but they went with Wembanyama third, which I was a little surprised at. Giannis went fourth. Luka fifth. Anthony Edwards was sixth. Cade Cunningham, seventh. This is all, like everybody's Jalen Brunson. These guys aren't as high on Jalen Brunson, and neither am I. They've got Trae Young. Sabonis went eighth. Trae Young went ninth. And the big cat, Karl Anthony Towns, went 10th. That was the first round. So what happens, is The 10th pick then gets the 11th pick,
Yeah.
and you move up backwards from there. So then the 11th pick took Big Cat. They followed that up with Jalen Williams of OKC Thunder. Great pick. Trae Young followed up with LeBron. How about Trae Young getting drafted before LeBron in his fantasy pick, and LeBron going out essentially as the number 12 pick? This guy took Sabonis and Booker. Cade Cunningham took Anthony Davis next. Anthony Edwards took Tyrese Maxey. Luka took Ivica Zubac, two big men right there. Giannis, then they took Brunson. So you're looking at Brunson way, way up in the 16 or 17 pick as far as who they think is the best. James Harden, I was a little surprised that he was in the 18th spot because he's a statistical anomaly all by himself, and he's very solid with his numbers. Pascal Siakam and Mobley, Eric Mobley went next, okay? Nobody took Donovan Mitchell yet. So I'll just read the others quickly. Josh Giddey, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry, 3rd-round pick. My goodness.
Oh, he's on the back nine.
He is on the back nine. Alperen Sengun, you haven't heard Kevin Durant's name yet either. Franz Wagner, Bam Adebayo, Nikola Vucevic, Jaylen Brown, Paolo Banchero, and LaMelo Ball. LaMelo Ball, and Jaylen Brown's going to have a good year this year. I think they're way too low here. You've got some other ones too. Amen Thompson, Zion Williamson. Watch out for Zion this year. I just saw a picture of him. He is cut. DeMar DeRozan, Ja Morant, Desmond Bain, Jalen Johnson, Cooper Flagg, way, way down in the 4th round. De'Aaron Fox, there's the old man and the stick, Kevin Durant. Pretty good stuff, though. Pretty good stuff. That'll show you where they think of those guys. You know, everybody would probably say, is Kevin Durant a top 20 player in the NBA? Everybody go, oh, yeah, no question. Not in these guys' eyes.
Not right now.
Not in the guys who are paying and trying to win money. All right. So told you Jason Tatum. Hopefully we'll see what happens there. You can extrapolate that out to Dame Lillard, Halliburton, all of these guys. Halliburton being in the finals, I really don't know if he can make it back in time. But Dame Lillard was the first to go, and I would say that he's up in Portland. Having been let go by the Bucks, I think he's going to be training with a certain kind of fire in his belly in order to get back, in order to prove everybody wrong. So keep an eye on that. Keep an eye on that. Okay. This is something I came across on the internet, and I looked at it, it didn't seem right to me, and then I had to go and debunk it. And these guys should be ashamed of themselves. I'm not going to call them out. But it says Michael Jordan has more 50-point games combined than LeBron, Wilt, Kareem, Bird, Magic, Shaq, Duncan, Durant, Curry, Klay Thompson, Dwayne Wade, so many of them. James Harden also. There's a dozen players. So I looked into it, and I said, Wilt
BS.
Chamberlain averaged 50 points a game. So I go and I look. Chamberlain, I mean, he had 118 50-point games. So I don't know what these guys are talking about. I just had to give it the dispute.
You think it was a typo?
All right? I hope because it was so far off. I mean, 118 games at 50 points, you weren't even close. Jordan at 31, I'll take Chamberlain out of this. Jordan at 31 doesn't equal all of these other guys combined. It's not even close. You can put some of these together and you can beat Jordan. So I don't get it. All right? But, 31 times he went over. Wilt was 118 times. Kobe's not even on the list. He was 25 times. Elgin Baylor went 17 times. So if you add Kobe and you add some other guys, no way. No way it's possible. All right. Here's the best rookie season of all time in the NBA. I thought this was interesting, and I thought it was kind of fun. They did it based upon stats, but also based upon impact to team. What did your team do that year? And I thought this was kind of interesting. All right? The number one player on their list, Magic Johnson, averaged 18 points, 7.7 rebounds, 7.3 assists, and 2.4 steals. They won the NBA championship when he was a rookie. People will remember Kareem Abdul-Jabbar getting hurt during that series, and Magic Johnson went on to become the MVP of the finals as well. What a great culmination to his rookie year. Larry Bird, they came on together, Bird and Magic, and they saved the NBA. 21 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.7 steals. They lost in the Eastern Conference semifinals, Larry Bird's first year. But I want to do it at another time, but if you look at the differential between what was the record the Celtics had the year before Bird came on and then when he came on, it's unbelievable. There's our guy, Michael Jordan, 28.2, 6.5, 5.9, and 2.4, but got kicked out in the first round to the Milwaukee Bucks. Shaq Daddy, 24, 13, 1.9. He missed the playoffs. Big Shaq, how'd that happen? LeBron, 25, 5, and 1.6. Great numbers. Missed the playoffs. How'd that happen? Luka, 21, 7, 6, and 1.1. Missed the playoffs. Wemby, 21, 10, 3.9, 3.6. Missed the playoffs. Unbelievable. Let's keep it rolling, Pete. NBA, most points in a playoff game. Who had the most points in an NBA playoff game? Top of the list, no surprise, the great, the indomitable Michael Jordan, 63 points in a Bulls uniform. I think it's also notable when you compare GOAT, to maybe it's LeBron and you're going Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan played in a Bulls uniform the entire time he was in the NBA. Never switched teams until he went later on to play for the Wizards when
that was after his baseball career.
think he had a piece of the team also.
Yep.
Elgin Baylor, 61 for the Lakers. What a great player. Nobody talks about this guy in the context of how great he was. People want to talk about, well, the new players are more talented and they're this. 61 points for Elgin Baylor, and that was back in 1968, 1970, somewhere around that time. Okay, you got Donovan Mitchell. I don't know why they didn't pick him on a fantasy team, but he had 57 points in a playoff game. Jimmy Butler had 56 for the Heat just a few years ago. The big man, Chuck Barkley, 56 for the Suns. Jordan, again, 56 for the Bulls. Wilt, 56 for the Lakers. I think might have been the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm not sure. Jordan, 55. 3 different times Jordan had 55. Allen Iverson for the 76ers had 55 points. Dame Lillard, 55. Rick Barry of the Warriors, 55. One of the things that always intrigued me about that, Rick Barry was one of the greatest free throw shooters percentage-wise of all time. He shot his free throws in the 90 percentile, and he shot them underhanded. He shot his free throws underhanded. Two hands on the ball, underhanded, and he flipped it up. And nobody else ever duplicated that. It's almost the equivalent of the sky hook was Rick Barry's underhand free throw because he was unbelievable. He was unbelievable. And they even, Wilt Chamberlain really struggled with free throw shooting in his day. And one of the reasons Shaq, Chamberlain, some of the other big players struggle with free throw shooting is because that's where it requires a little bit of finesse, and their hands are so large that basketball feels like a basketball to me. It probably feels like a grapefruit to them. And so it's a little bit more difficult once the sphere is smaller, I think, in that big hand to get full control of it. But Rick Barry, again, what a great player he was, led the Warriors to a championship, and a great all-around player, tough player. Scoring titles. This was interesting to me because they talk about, well, back in the day, those guys, they were a bunch of playing against plumbers, and J.J. Redick, that clown that he is, says, Jerry West couldn't. I mean, Jerry West would have eaten your lunch, J.J. Jerry West would have had you for a snack, okay? Just because the three-point shooting came in, that's what made you a better player than you ever would have been. Okay, because they had a three-point shot and you were a three-point specialist. But for you to even put Jerry West's name on your mouth is offensive, and it shouldn't happen. Okay, let's go through it. All right, you got Jordan 10 times, 10 scoring titles. 5 times, Mr. Jordan, while he was having those scoring titles, shot field goal percentage above 50%. 5 times. Of the 10, he was above 50% in field goal percentage. Nobody does that now.
Yeah.
Nobody wins the scoring title like that now. George Gervin, the Iceman. What a player this guy was. Nobody talks about him anymore. 4 different scoring titles. His field goal percentage in the 4 years that he won those titles never dipped below 50%. 4 years, won the title every single year. His field goal percentage was over 50%. Allen Iverson, He won 4 scoring titles, but Allen Iverson had his highest field goal percentage was 42.4 field goal percentage. His lowest that he won a scoring title with was 39.8. Kevin Durant has 4 titles. He went over 50% of those 4 times one time where he shot 50.3. Those are some interesting numbers. I think it gives you some perspective. I think it gives you an idea that this is what the old coach has been saying all along. There's been great players in every single era of basketball. There have been amazing players in every single era. But I'll give you one more point that's a delineation point from me, because I've been around a long time, folks. I've been watching this thing a long time, okay? When they came in with Michael Jordan, everybody's pretty aware that they came in with the Jordan rules. The NBA wanted to change the hand check rules. They had illegal defense stuff. They had all of this crazy, crazy stuff. But that helped Jordan. That made it easier for Jordan to be the great player he was. I'm not discounting the great player he was, but he did operate under a certain set of rules that were different than everybody else in the league. No question about that. Now, when you talk about Wilt Chamberlain, you talk about other great centers that were back in the day, they changed the rules to limit them. They changed the rules to make them less effective. And so I think that's a really big delineation point for me was the rules changed. The way of doing business changed. It became more corporate, so you protected the entities. If you had protected Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the same way that you protected these guys, it would be a different story, in my opinion. All right, here's the top scoring teams, top 5. Again, I love to do research on this stuff. I really do. I like to figure it out, all right? The number 1 team, because they listed 5 teams, but guess who they forgot to add in here, Pete? The 2024 Pacers,
okay,
who averaged 124 points a game this year. Unbelievable. Led the league. All right, so the number 1 team, the Denver Nuggets. 1982, Doug Moe, the greatest line of any coach that has ever been fired. The Denver Nuggets fired Doug Moe. The newspapers asked him, "What are you going to do, Doug?" He goes, "Here today, gone to Maui." That's exactly what he did. Okay, you got the 1962 Philadelphia Warriors. Their record was 49-31, 125 points a game. 1967 76ers, they were 68-13 and they were NBA champions, 125.2. 1960 Boston Celtics, listen to this record, Pete, 59-16. NBA champions, and they scored 124 points a game.
Wow.
Now you got to take the Denver Nuggets here again, which is again, I believe, a Doug Moe team. Denver Nuggets, 123.7. Their record was 38-44, and that might have been what led Mr. Moe to go to Maui. But I got to include here the Pacers, who are 2024. They've scored 124 points. They knocked that Denver Nugget team out of the top 5, and they stood in there. All right? All right, Pete, we're going to close with a flurry here. The Rockets, Houston, we have a problem. Fred Van Fleet. I didn't realize that was as much of a tongue twister as it really is. Fred Van Fleet of the Rockets has torn his ACL, and there's a good chance that he will be out for the year. That's going to hurt. That's going to hurt them because he's a great shooter from the outside. He's somebody who can stretch the defense, and while adding Kevin Durant, who's another good perimeter shooter, I think that that's what the plan was. They will be able to space the floor. I'm really, really upset to hear that because I was so excited to watch the Rockets go this year. I don't think that cripples them. I don't think it takes them out, but it's not going to help. Luka, holy Moses. I watched a little bit of that Eurobasket. I'm going to say one thing right now. Laker fans, you're going to be happy. Luka is lit. Luka is big. He's cut. He's been in the weight room. That's one of the knocks on Luka for a long time is he didn't train in the Euro basketball tournament. He came out. He looks physical. He looks much better conditioned than he has been in the past. And I think this talking new Lakers, new ownership, new era. I like what I'm seeing out there. Okay, the Pelicans, they're in the zone. We're going to tell everybody here, put your stock in the Pelicans this year to do a little bit of what the Detroit Pistons did last year. New Orleans Pelicans have been on their back flat. They've also had two players, Ingram and Zion Williamson, who've been injured all the time. I saw Zion Williamson the other day. Watch out, NBA. Watch out. He's cut. He's in the best shape. Him and Luka might have been hanging out all summer, but right now, Zion is going to put it on, and I think the Pelicans are going to rise. If he can play the whole season and Ingram can stay healthy, they've got a couple of other nice pieces in there that I think are going to be good. I think Derek Queen, that they picked up in the draft, is going to be helpful there. I'm looking at the Pelicans. They may be able to rise, but again, that's with the caveat that you're going to have to keep Mr. Williamson and Mr. Ingram healthy. All right, but that's the best Zion I've ever seen, and I'm hopeful that it rubs off on Derek Queen as well, because if Derek Queen takes on a training program that's serious, Derek Queen takes on a physical attribution program that's serious, works out with a trainer and really goes after it and gives everything he's got, he's an all-star. He's an NBA all-star, in my opinion. All right? Precious Achiuwa will be going back to Miami. This is another good pickup going back to Miami, a good help for them up front. But again, Thomas Bryant is going to the Cavs. This is another shot that the Indiana Pacers have taken on their front line. Miles Turner is gone to the Bucks as free agency, and now Thomas Bryant, who came off the bench, really did a great job for them this year off the bench. He's out of Rochester, Thomas Bryant. Watched him since he was a high school player. Really big, solid inside man. I think that's going to hurt, and it's going to really bolster the Cavaliers' front line. I think that's a really nice pickup for the Cavaliers. Okay, we got Lipsey getting tipsy, Pete. Tamim Lipsey, my guard that I love from Iowa State. The Cyclone got hit, okay? He's out 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL injury. All right, Pete, when you talk about the knee, all right, I want to clear this up for people. When you hear MCL, you're all right. It'll take a little bit of time, not that bad. When you hear meniscus, you're okay. A little bit of time, won't be that bad. When you hear ACL, shudder, because that's a really big one, and it's very difficult to come back from. Sister Jean, Pete, 106 years old, has decided to retire. And we wish Sister Jean, the Loyola Ramblers, and the unbelievable run, Coach Porter Moser, and they had to the Final Four. Unbelievable. They were an 11 seed, went all the way to the Final Four. They took out Miami, took out Tennessee, took out Nevada, took out Kansas State, eventually lost to Michigan. Sister Jean, may God be with you on your journey. Pete, we're in the zone. We'll catch you next week, baby.